our focus yet on making an impact wasn't so much, oh, this is China, this is Russia, this is this specific country, was understanding how they establishing their infrastructure, how are they using their tooling, and then writing detections or either taking down their infrastructure, but much more importantly, working with the vendors to write high fidelity detections that just prevents their tooling from working without them easily being able to reverse engineer what we're looking for. And that was the really interesting cat and mouse game with them, was
Yeah.
you'd see them try and change their tooling, you'd see them try and change their behaviors and test something. Oh, are you still detecting that? Aren't you? And it was definitely very interesting playing that cat and mouse. But it also really shows you how in cyber we're the one of the few industries where we're playing or working up against humans on another keyboard.
Yeah.
It's not we're trying to troubleshoot a bug in some software. It really is human versus human.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of the Future of Security Operations podcast. This week, we've got a great episode in store for you. I'm delighted to be joined by Raymond Schippers. With 15 years of experience leading detection and response teams, Raymond is a seasoned security leader who has gone from 0 to 1. He's had high impact roles at Check Point and Canva, and he recently became co founder of Huntabil.IT, a Melbourne based consulting company providing organizations with tailored advisory services to align with their threat landscapes and business goals. Uh, Raymond, I'm delighted to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, TK. It's a pleasure. It's been amazing working with you as well over the last many years.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been excited for this one. We've definitely got a similar experience and a similar I suppose perception and feeling with the security industry. So hopefully I'll be able to challenge one or two of those, and we'll see where it takes us. Let's start at the very well towards the beginning. You started in IT and you kind of transitioned to security focused roles about a decade ago. Tell me a little bit more. What sparked that move?
Yeah, cybersecurity is always something I wanted to do. I was incredibly fortunate growing up. I had a dad who worked in IT, and so on weekends I'd go in with him, help him reboot mainframes, swap over tape drives, and things like that. And so in high school, I did work experience with the cybersecurity team. He worked for a very large multinational company, Siemens, and I got to work with their cybersecurity team for my work experience in high school. And after that, I was hooked on cyber, and that's always something I wanted to do.
All right, folks, you heard it here first. If you want to get into cybersecurity, best step is to start when you're in high school and get an internship in Siemens. Um, not maybe not the easiest path for everybody, but I suppose you did make that transition relatively early on. Can you tell me a little bit more about, I think your first big security role was like in Checkpoint. You spent 8 years there at a time when they were one of the like standout security companies of the age. Any standout moments from that time?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was incredibly fortunate to come from a few years prior to that in cybersecurity, working at a state-owned enterprise, which was interesting.
Okay.
But at Checkpoint, it was really interesting working on leading consulting and incident response investigations. And so we got to work on some really interesting state-sponsored attacks, cyber criminal investigations, but also just working with industry and government partners to try and make a noticeable impact. So we definitely got to take part in some takedowns, in some interesting investigations, and to kind of understand the adversary landscape and try and make their lives difficult, which was a lot of fun. Also, that's where I first got my start in building highly capable teams. I looked after the APAC team and built that out. And we got to do some fun things working with various national certs, helping them build out capabilities. But yeah, I'll always remember being able to work on investigations in air traffic control systems. Being a bit of an aviation nerd, we got into one case where we were working with air traffic control systems, not directly, but like in the networks adjacent to air traffic control systems and helping secure communications with air traffic control systems. So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, super fascinating. When you say takedowns, you mean like takedowns of like kind of those large APTs rather than takedowns of an individual website. For a lot of people that are listening, and it's definitely going to be the case that they're like, well, it's impossible for us to even, track APTs. You may have some indicators. You may be able to say, oh, this is this group. But how do you go about like that attribution and then takedown? What does that process look like?
Yeah, being fortunate, like at that time, Checkpoint was kind of the leading cybersecurity vendor. So
Yeah,
we had incredible visibility across the world from customers who opted in to send telemetry. And so using that telemetry, we were able to understand what their behaviors look like at a huge global scale, and then track that back to various infrastructure. And when you have customers who are infrastructure providers as well, we can then engage with them to kind of hunt that down further. And then because of the visibility we had, we work closely with government agencies as well. So they'd have other bits of information that they can bring to the party, and then together you can build up a pretty comprehensive picture of what the adversary is. I was also very fortunate. I was part of the Cyber Threat Alliance on behalf of Checkpoint, so we'd work very closely with all the other vendors on the CTA. And so we'd share intelligence through that as well. So together combined, the cybersecurity industry, working with government partners, we'd build up a very strong picture of who was coming from, like what an adversary was doing, what their behaviors were. And we weren't looking so much at IOCs, but the actual TTPs, like when you're talking
yeah,
about the pyramid of pain, that real behavioral indicators, what are they doing once they compromise a system? How are they compromising systems? And then you start tracking that back over a period of sometimes months, if not years. You build up a strong picture of kind of the groups.
yeah,
We never really attributed it to a specific country, but we definitely understand based on the victimology whose interests they were working in, most likely. And that gave us a pretty good indication of kind of who was behind it. But our focus yet on making an impact wasn't so much, oh, this is China, this is Russia, and this is this specific country. It was understanding how they establishing their infrastructure, how are they using their tooling, and then writing detections or either taking down their infrastructure, but much more importantly, working with the vendors to write high fidelity detections that just prevents their tooling from working without them easily being able to reverse engineer what we're looking for. And that was the really interesting cat and mouse game with them, was
yeah,
you'd see them try and change their tooling, you'd see them try and change their behaviors and test something. Oh, are you still detecting that? Aren't you? And it was definitely very interesting playing that cat and mouse. But it also really shows you how in cyber we're the one of the few industries where we're playing or working up against humans on another keyboard.
yeah.
It's not we're trying to troubleshoot a bug in some software. It really is human versus human.
Yeah, when I was working in eBay, we had some, yeah, incredible OCNs, not APTs, but like proper, proper criminal networks, but with like division of labor, people that were hosting, using, hey, I'm providing my bulletproof hosting, I'm providing your victims, I'm writing the malware, etc. But what was fascinating again, it was watching their TTPs kind of evolve, but also they knew who we were, and they were like 100% like aware of, oh, hey, they're going to at this point, try to like at some point take down all of this. So when that happened, they would have like backups in order to, do XYZ, and it was intimidating, but it also just struck me that it was like, yeah, if these guys were working forward, the good guys who were on the blue team side of the house, that they would be very sharp, and I would likely be yeah, likely be working for them. But it was a lot of fun. Can I ask? And I don't want to dive too much into this, but how did he balance that, like the hey, we're able to track with the responsibility to your customers to kind of remove and remediate ASAP, or did that ever come into did that ever like did that, I suppose, conflict ever emerge?
So we're lucky it didn't. So
Okay.
typically, when the incident response side of the house was kind of engaged, our focus was purely remediation.
Yeah. Okay.
We also worked very closely with the threat research team, who kind of full time do that work, and we were kind of the hands and feet where we'd reach out to a customer and say, "Hey, our threat researchers are seeing this." A lot of customers, unfortunately, were anonymized. So we knew what vertical they were in or which region they were in, but we never knew who the customer was. So we unfortunately couldn't reach out to them. But that's where pushing detections, pushing notifications was a key focus of us. But yeah, definitely our focus was always like dealing with the threat for the customer.
Hmm.
And then afterwards, we'd engage across industry, across with government to say, hey, this is what we've seen. This is the evidence that we have, and this is what we can share.
Yeah.
and then we do kind of the anti-APT or anti-cyber criminal activity takedowns, making their lives more difficult afterwards.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay. Um, I know when I was in eBay, my title was like e-crime investigator, and I still think it was probably the most interesting job I had. Um, you worked at Checkpoint for like 8 years, but what made you want to move? What was the what was the decision? It's like, hey, I wanna move on. I want to move to like to Canva.
Yeah, I was approached by a recruiter working on behalf of Canva to come and build the capability basically. Canva was significantly stepping up their cybersecurity capability, and they had a very strong kind of AppSec team at that point, but they didn't have anyone in the defensive space, in the blue team space. And so I was part of the very early team. There was three of us hired to begin with to come in and build that capability. And that sounded incredibly appealing. Like Canva was going through its hyperscale phase, and so being able to join that company and with a greenfields environment almost, build a cloud native cybersecurity capability really appealed to me.
I love it. I suppose when you like, if for those who aren't aware, Canva obviously now is one of the top 10, I think, visited websites in the world. It's pretty outrageous, and it was one of those first logos that when we landed, one or two people were like, "Wow, we can start taking you seriously as a business person." But yeah, at the time you were like it was big, but it was like just barely that like over of that unicorn kind of
Yeah.
status. It wasn't the behemoth it is today. But yeah, tell me how did you approach that? Like obviously it's your privilege. It's like a cloud native and tech savvy organization. But how did you say like, hey, here's you're just starting out in the blue team. How do you say here's what I want to prioritize? How do you start scaling?
Yeah, for us, it was really using kind of a threat intelligence led approach.
Okay.
That was the big challenge that we had being cloud native. So much of the intelligence reporting that you have out there, the tooling as well, is based on a Windows or a kind of a hybrid Windows environment. Whereas in Canva, we didn't really use Windows. We didn't have kind of Active Directory or kind of those normal enterprise challenges that you have. It was purely cloud native. And so, first of all, was understanding how are the adversaries behaving? What's kind of have we seen before? And we're incredibly lucky. We have an incredible red team at there at Canva, and we worked very closely with them to simulate adversaries, understand what it looked like, and that helped us really prioritize. I'll remember one of the first things that we did very quickly when kind of the team started was focus on identity because we noticed very quickly that was kind of the key way our red team was compromising us, and we were seeing kind of the early stages of the various kind of just teenagers who were keen for notoriety abusing identity. The people who stole GitHub accounts and things like
Yeah.
that. And so our red team kept using OTP replay attacks against us, and so we sorted that one out pretty quick with WebAuthn, but it was really using the threat intelligence to understand, but then using automation to scale. Yeah, as you mentioned, the scale of Canva grew so quickly. When I joined, it was about 800 staff. By the time I left, 4 years later, it was rapidly approaching 6,000 staff. And we were supporting about 20 million customers, monthly active users when I started, and it ended up around 250 million. So like 10x in 4 years was crazy.
Absolutely crazy. Can you talk about, I suppose, some of the you mentioned like automation driven being important, but what are some of the challenges that like that rapid growth and scale brings to a security team when you're trying to yeah, I don't know, yeah, but when you're trying to like choose tools, when you're trying to like hire people, how do you get into that like growth mindset when you're trying to make your priorities?
Yeah, one of the key challenges we faced was finding the right people.
Hmm.
We really wanted to ensure that we had a diverse team. Cybersecurity diversity around the world is a challenge, but especially in Australia. And it's very easy to get into the mindset of ask your traditional cybersecurity questions and then be surprised when you only get your kind of traditional kind of candidates. And so we're really focusing on how we hired and being really intentional with how we hired, ensuring that we were getting people with a diverse background because we really needed people with different ways of thinking because the traditional approaches weren't going to work with what we did. And then also just understanding how the company was going to go in. So communicating with leadership, working across the business to understand what was happening, because it was constantly evolving, constantly changing, and then looking at our roadmap and how can we platformize basically what we were trying to do. So really understanding, okay, let's provide a solid platform so we can rapidly shift our focus and priorities if we need to. But it was really about hiring the right people initially, getting them on board, and making sure they had the right tooling. So one of the first things that we decided to do was focus on ensuring that people didn't have to be in-depth software engineers, that we didn't need everyone to be a Python expert. That was one of the first things that we noted. Like the original team that we was hired, we were all reasonably strong with scripting, with some coding, but to hire that kind of next tranche of engineers, especially early career people, that was really limiting the talent pool that we could pull from. And so that's one of the reasons we actually like looked at Tines and moved to Tines was to have that low code, no code automation, so we could scale up and hire early career people and continue to grow the pool.
Yeah, I love it. I love that you talk about the, I suppose, diversity being important there. Um, and yeah, moving away from your traditional hiring questions, but how did you like? It's often incorrectly, I suppose, seen as as a challenge to hire the right people. What methods did you go to? What methods did you use, or what tips and tricks do you have to say, hey, we can find these candidates?
Yeah, we worked with the amazing talent team, the talent acquisition team at Canva to create some really open-ended job descriptions of postings.
Hmm.
But then also the interview process, we made sure had a diverse pool of people, that we didn't all look like me, was one of the key things. But also we had challenge interviews, so a candidate could come in and present on a specific topic that we informed them of beforehand, as well as run them through kind of technical scenarios. And we found that having kind of both something that people could be confident in presenting, know what was going to be asked in terms of the topic they were going to be talking about, and giving them kind of that assurance of, okay, this is what I need to talk about. This is the, we'd even give them the guidance on, okay, these are the
Yeah.
things we kind of expect you to go through. And that helped reassure, especially a lot of early career people of, okay, yeah, I can do this. And that kind of helped build their confidence. We found that if you just throw random scenarios at them, that people freeze in interviews. Like even myself, I
Yeah.
still freeze sometimes in interviews, and your mind goes blank, and then half an hour afterwards, you just go, "Oh, of course I know the answers." And so building up that confidence for them, and then asking questions about their thought process, because at the end of the day, in cybersecurity, we can teach the technical skills. It's the thought process and that really inquisitive mindset that we're after, and trying to tease that out through those challenge presentations was one of the really cool things that we did.
Yeah, I love it. You should be trying to find reasons to hire people, not reasons to not hire people. But yeah, I remember we did that in the very early days and times. We whenever you applied for an engineering role, we'd send you out a test, and the test was designed to be like basically that a little bit of like self-selection. It's going to be hard, but also that like we're not going to look at anything. If you apply, you can do this test, and then we will like blindly review the result of this, and then we'll say like, okay, this person is good, or this person is like worth bringing to an interview. And we had a candidate who will recognize this when I say it, but who like crushed the test, and we were like, oh, brilliant, let's bring them to an interview. And then we are like, wait a second, now this doesn't make any sense. This person's like a final year grad, and the engineering team were like, this no, like we wanted somebody with like 3 or 4 years experience. This doesn't make any sense. But we brought them in anyway, and asked them to talk through it, asked them about the thought process, and they not only crushed it, they like blew the team away. And we're like, this wasn't the goal, this wasn't the plan. But we said we absolutely have to hire this person now. Yeah, she's here 4 years, and she's yeah, like now, yeah, been promoted a couple of times. She's absolutely fantastic. So, but it's that Yeah, I suppose, yeah, finding reasons to hire people and finding reasons to to make sure that they're given the opportunity to shine. Um, as you know, though, it's not just about like hiring those people. You also have to keep them happy, and in that scale environment, it's really hard. Certainly in my experience. Um, in a talk that you gave at like B-Sides Perth that I was listening to, you had a couple of initiatives to tackle burnout so that you can keep people. Um, what are some of the things that work really well to tackle burnout? How did you approach that at Canva?
Yes. As you kind of mentioned that besides talk, I talk about the pod system, the rotation
Yeah.
system that we implemented. And what we did was we stood up, a dedicated CTI team, a dedicated threat detection hunting team, and then most of the team kind of lived under the incident response team, where we had kind of under the IR lead, where we had three kind of pods as we call them, standalone teams. And each month they either do IR or the next month they go off do threat detection, threat hunting. The next month, kind of green team, our SecOps and automation work, and sometimes as well support CTI. The what we found with that, it was incredibly beneficial to reduce burnout and alert fatigue. After a month of triaging alerts, responding to incidents, working Monday to Friday at the coalface of cybersecurity operations and dealing with one crisis to the other, people were pretty fatigued. They were worn out, and they were ready to do something else. And with my background in kind of running IR teams, I saw that so often with customers where they just throw absolutely everything they had at an incident. Everyone would burn out after day three, and you'd have absolutely no resources left to continue the long fight in an incident. So having that very large IR team that was 99% of the time busy with other things helped ensure that we could scale an incident. I think I remember Log4j was a great example where for a couple of days we had to work 8-hour shifts, but because we had those three teams, we had 24-hour coverage basically. So we'd work 9-hour shifts just so we had some coverage with handover times, and we'd cover the whole 24 hours, but no one had to work more than say 9 hours at a time, which helped manage that. And in the day to day, they do IR for a month, and after that, they typically sighed a big sigh of relief and got to work on something else. But it also really broke down the silos between the teams. Everyone became intimately aware of our threat detection and hunting platform, how that operated, but it also meant that rather than having a very small team being on call to support that platform 24/7, we could get volunteers from the incident response team to volunteer to be on call for that team as well. But they really understood the intricacies of that. So if a log was there or wasn't there, what did it mean? How could we onboard logs in an emergency? Rather than detections just being thrown over a fence, as that's seen so often.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen that a million times. Hey, I've just deployed something new Friday afternoon. All of a sudden, Saturday there's, you're woken up to a couple of false positives kind of thing. Um, yeah, it brings accountability and it brings trust to those parts of the organization, I suppose. Um, how important was automation in your strategy? Where did it land? Where was it what worked, what didn't?
Yeah, so automation was one of the dedicated rotations that we ended up building. So that green team automation rotation, because we couldn't scale without it, whether it
Hmm.
was CTI, whether it was receiving alerts, but even just educating our users and dealing with alerts. So one of the classic examples that we built out was taking alerts from our DLP and identifying that, hey, made something public on Google Drive. It contains PII. Therefore, it's against our policy, and we just took it down. So we'd make it private and we just notify the user that, hey, we've taken this action. If you believe it's a false positive, click this button to contact us. But we just do the awareness piece to the user as well that they've done it, that we've done something against it so they don't wonder why this all of a sudden stopped working. And we took that approach with quite a number of activities that people did was, hey, it's an automated alert. We don't need a human to deal with this, and we can respond automatically. But also on the CTI side, it was absolutely incredible for our collections, for sharing the intelligence and disseminating intelligence to all of our various controls. It was really, really important. But also during incidents, we had one time where we needed to very rapidly build a web app at insane scale to do a specific task. And most people expected it would take us weeks to build this. Using automation, we managed to get it done in 12 hours. And that was incredible capability for us to be able to deliver and get that task done at very, very large kind of canvas scale. I was very fortunate. I had a very large kind of group by especially Australian standards, very large cybersecurity group, but we could definitely not scale infinitely. And so without automation, it would have been impossible to deliver what we delivered.
I hear you. Um, AI, hot topic like these days, but I see you smiling. It's also like seen as a bit of a synonym for automation, which makes a whole lot of sense. How are you feeling about it right now? Are you more skeptical or more enthusiastic than you were a year ago, I'd say?
I definitely started off very skeptical. I'll be honest. Definitely quite quietly optimistic about it now. I've definitely started to see it have some strong use cases. There's absolutely still things it struggles with. I think like a classic example of something I was trying to do the other day was turning blog posts into sticks bundles and sticks reports. Um, it, it handles that, but like those kind of arcane things, it's not amazing at. But definitely helping improve how we communicate as a cybersecurity community. The way we communicate with stakeholders, with the general public, is not always amazing. And so I think AI can really help with that. But also with your tier one, kind of level one triage, understanding what this alert actually means in a simple to understand language. It's definitely become a long way in that very, very quickly, actually. But keen to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. I think for a lot of that, like parsing information, summarizing, yeah, generating a report, incredibly good. Even like giving recommendations for next steps and maybe even taking that first next step, it's good. Where I'm very bullish is human in the loop interacting with AI to say like, hey, I want you to do X. Uh, like that kind of agentic system, or a more tool use system where it's very easy to go out and say like, hey, I want you to extract the IOCs from this particular URL. What I'm less bullish about is right now these completely it feels like the like, hey, I'm able to replace your entire SOC pitches where the only thing you need to do is plug this in and we'll be able to detect everything. And then after we detect everything, we'll be able to respond to it and remediate everything as well. A, I'm not sure that humans can do that incredibly well. And B, it's really hard for when well, those systems, they have to have integrations with everything, but also uh, those like small, tiny mistakes at each point along the way multiply. And that's where I don't necessarily trust the complete autonomous SOC vision, at least just yet. And not that it can't get there, but it feels a little bit like those early you'll forgive me if anybody from Silence is listening, but those Silence days where they're like absolutely promising the world and using machine learning with no false positives. It's like I don't think I don't think it's there yet. But I'm very bullish on it helping like cybersecurity teams. It's incredibly powerful, uh, but you just have to temper it with a little bit of yeah, a little bit of humans and a little bit of maturity on where it's at the moment, I suppose. So yeah, well, I suppose any exciting companies that you're looking at, anything that you're like, yeah, these guys are really interesting, or this crew have some interesting technology or an interesting application.
Not specifically that I've
Okay,
seen. I think AI is just becoming part of everything.
yeah,
I have noticed like every company is trying to jam AI into things, and sometimes that causes a significant eye roll for me. Because like we have this new AI feature, I'm like, why? Like you create dashboard widgets. I don't need AI for that. Um, but yeah, no, nothing that's revolutionized. But yeah, it is definitely starting to come everywhere. I think the challenge we're going to have as well is with AI being everywhere and everyone including it is where's all this data going?
yeah.
And that's started to become the challenge, I think, is understanding who's learning on what. And there seems to be no clear, coherent approach to that yet.
I think the approach Times have taken and the approach that some of our peers have taken, we try to like be leaders in that. Like it's very. it'd be very easy to say, hey, we're just going to build a model that's going to train across all our customers' data. We're absolutely not doing that. We've like every single feature we've implemented, we're saying, hey, there's no training, no logging. It's within your infrastructure. It's tenant scoped. You can bring your own key. You can bring your own model if you want, and that means that you control you control the interaction with AI. But there's plenty of folks out there that are opting you into certain like, hey, Will, if you want to use the benefit of this, the only thing you need to do is like opt in, and then all of a sudden, yeah, you're being used to, or your data is being used, your customers' data is being used to, yeah, to make their models better. Which I'm not quite, again, not quite convinced on. And yeah, I'd also be very worried about overfitting in a lot of those situations, based on alerts that I've been seeing before, unless you've got Microsoft scale. But even at Microsoft scale or Amazon scale, you can see like their security copilot is, like I'm skeptical about it.
Yeah.
It's still not doing a great job, and they have more data than like any single company in the world will be able to have on security and like telemetry. So it's really hard.
I still think it's also very early days in AI
Yeah,
security.
totally. Yep.
Around prompt injection, around being able to derive what the training data was from. I still think we're at very early days, and I think we're going to see some very interesting attacks against AI to reveal that kind of information. And especially where you have like APTs with unique attacks, like they'd love to understand what do you know about us. And so if there's unique fingerprints and they can derive that kind of stuff through AI, I think we could see some significant security challenges there as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I do remember. Yeah, one particular company had a very cool system. This is back in the day, a very cool system to like store all emails related to yeah, all emails related to like to APT campaigns, which was fantastic, and they were able to preview them and able to see them. But of course, they were previewing them in their environment, and the referrer headers for the URLs that they were hosting were all like showing up with their. So the yeah, ultimately when it was they were investigated properly, it was like yeah, they were able to track like who was doing what and who was getting close because they were able to see, hey, this whatever corp.microsoft.com was viewing all these yeah, all these emails at particular points in time. I'm like, oh, that's terrible. Understandable, but terrible.
Yeah.
Anyway, um, I, we talked a lot about Canva, and you had a huge amount of freedom there to build up a team, to grow, and yeah, to I suppose to try new things. Given that, what was the decision to move to become a founder to start Huntability?
Yeah, it was definitely a very difficult decision. Built an amazing group out there at Canva. Hopefully, yeah, hopefully they're listening. And had an amazing time out there.
They tell me they
But
wouldn't.
but no, I kind of missed working with different customers in different environments
Yeah.
and helping them solve unique and interesting challenges. It was an amazing opportunity to work with the team at Canva and kind of build that out at insane scale. But yeah, having worked for nearly a decade in kind of the consulting side, working with various customers with unique and different challenges almost every day, I kind of missed that rush. And so yeah, I built out the capability at Canva, I built out the capability at Check Point, and so I thought, yeah, maybe it's time that I throw my hat in the ring and try and build it out for myself, and we'll see how it goes.
So tell me, you have thrown your hat into the ring. What is Huntability? What are you offering to your customers?
Yes, so through Huntabil.IT, I'm now helping organizations transform their security posture using kind of the same threat-informed methodology we use at Canva. So to understand adversaries, understand their behaviors, and using that to prioritize and shape their security roadmaps and kind of much more effectively protect against emerging threats and kind of really optimize their resource allocation. No one's ever going to have enough cybersecurity specialists or even money,
Mhm.
and so understanding who is likely to come and kick over our sandcastle, how they're behaving, and what's kind of the core choke points that we can look at prioritizing is really key. I see so many organizations day to day focusing on compliance, focusing on PCI DSS or GDPR, those kinds of various regimes that they need to focus on. But that is all derived from what happened 5, 10 years ago. It's not
Mhm.
about, hey, this is what's happening today. And at Canva, we're incredibly successful at achieving compliance, ISO, SOC 2, Type 2, PCI DSS, you name it. There's all these kinds of compliance requirements we had to adhere to. I know SOC 2 isn't compliance. I distinctly remember our head of GRC at Canva, Jeff, reminding us every day that SOC 2 is not a compliance not a compliance regime. And but yes, really prioritizing what actually matters while still adhering to compliance. But the other really key thing for starting my own business, I was really inspired by Canva's two-step plan. And that was very simply become one of the most valuable companies in the world, but then do the most good with that they can. And it was amazing working in that company, seeing it achieve so much good while still being an absolutely amazing place to work. Incredible, a company doing incredibly well as well. And so kind of common wisdom always was, well, if you're, if you're going to go out and do the most good that you can, it's going to come at some kind of financial penalty or other penalty to either the team, resourcing, the company, or anything like that. And I think Canva has really led the way in showing that it doesn't have to. You can operate in a way that does an immense good around the world, and a lot of the good they do quite quietly, actually, in the background. They don't announce they don't really announce it. And so being on the inside, seeing that made and seeing the difference that Canva's having, I think really inspired me that in cybersecurity, we really need to step up and do something similar. I've seen some pretty unsavory things like people charging charities and not-for-profits significant sums of money to come and do that. And I'd much rather just work with them for free. Like the, I'd much rather work and build up a amazing group of customers, working with them in kind of the finance and other sectors, but then work with not-for-profits for free, and really help those organizations that are the most vulnerable, that help the most vulnerable, stop being so vulnerable. Because every day I see in the press that this charity, this hospital, this other
Oh yeah.
organization that is absolutely critical to our life and our society is being compromised or attacked because they don't have the budget, they don't have the expertise.
I'd love to dive in on that in a second, especially that kind of like altruistic point and even how Canva are doing it. But um, the first part of your answer, like when you're saying, "Hey, understanding the threat landscape, understanding how you can effectively allocate resources," um, it seems like those customers may be a little bit different than your kind of charities, your not for profits. Who are your ideal customers? Who are you trying to like? Who are you trying to work with?
Yeah, we're working with kind of your mid to larger enterprises
Okay.
of all kind of scales. Like um, whether you're a small real estate agency or kind of a Fortune 10 company, there's still adversaries that are relevant to you, and you have unique challenges. Now, for your smaller organizations, it's probably a bit more cookie cutter approach because it's quite consistent, your threat landscape between them. But definitely, kind of ideally, I love working with the people who have unique and interesting challenges in different areas. Like I go back to the air traffic control system. That was actually a reasonably small company. It wasn't a huge company. It was maybe like 5,000 staff, but the impact they have on the globe
Yeah.
is massive. And so as a result, like I love working with those kinds of companies. But we're definitely primarily working with kind of larger enterprises right now. And people who potentially have CTI teams or threat detection teams and things like that, but looking to kind of really step up to just kind of this threat informed defense approach.
Okay, so maybe taking a lot of the maybe people are a little bit behind, but have could be going on that journey similar to Canva and
Yeah.
giving them advice to say like, hey, this is what we're going to be doing, or this is how you should. Yeah, this is
Yeah.
from my experience. This is how you should do it. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely not. I don't think people are like it's so much people behind. Like we've spoken to some absolutely amazing teams, but
Okay.
I think the threat informed defense is kind of the next kind of evolution of kind of how we do cybersecurity. It's actually interesting over the last couple of weeks since starting this, we've seen jobs advertised in the US for a head of threat informed defense. So in the US, we're starting to see people kind of using this threat informed defense mindset and really kind of focusing on that and driving that across the business. And I think that will kind of start to spread across the world now.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes total sense. And hope I'd love to see it happen. I'd love to see. I suppose a little bit more thoughtful rather than just hey, we're going to hire another 3 engineers because yeah, the team is growing. This is the most logical way of hiring 3 people. I'd love to see it be a little bit more thoughtful. Um, uh, because it's so important to you, I'd love to learn a tiny bit more about that. I suppose that altruistic part. What what methods have you seen be effective? Like the concern that that some folks in the cybersecurity industry have is that like if you're just throwing resources at it, it's great, but ultimately you need people in that like team to manage those resources. You need people to like you can't just deploy a SIM. That doesn't help unless there's actually somebody there to detect and respond. How do you approach that with some of those? Like if we take that like air traffic control system, how would you approach it with some of those organizations?
Yeah, so the air traffic controllers, that was still for-profit companies, so we
Yeah,
would just
okay,
work with
yeah.
them as customers. But recently, we started working very closely with an NGO called Off Limits, and
Okay.
and they do incredible work in fighting CSAM, but also staffing hotlines to be proactive and counsel people to steer them away from that. And so working with them right now, we're just talking to them and understanding what are their unique requirements, whether it is in some cases purely monetary,
Yeah.
like they need money to pay for counseling for their staff because they do pretty abhorrent. They have to view it pretty abhorrent materials. They do very stressful job, and sometimes they need that. But also it's working with our vendors, working with our partners saying, hey, like they're asking for this specific investigative capability. Well, I know this organization that does that. And so we'll work with them to build those relationships and do that for free. And we'll provide the training on how to use those things, how to use those tools. There's other organizations that we're working with that, as you mentioned, like they need a 24/7 SOC. And so we will work with them and kind of provide that capability for them.
Cool.
We're building into our staffing models that we can have that capacity because absolutely that was one of the challenges and what kind of that I saw at Canva and what kind of drove me to start my own business. I had a great time at Canva doing our force for good, as Canva called it.
Mhm.
Your two kind of assigned days a year with charities. And you'd help them deploy a SIEM, you'd help them develop a strategy, but then you'd walk away and they still didn't have anything. And so running our own organization, we're definitely keen to put in the resources, and we are putting in the resources. Our headcount plan include quite reasonable and generous chunks of time every day to spend with those not-for-profits and those charities, and to make sure that we kind of support them with the operational security. Because absolutely, that's one of the huge challenges I've seen in that space is that okay, you donate a SIEM, they don't know how to configure it, they don't know how to use it, they're not monitoring, and they're no more secure than when you started.
No, it's not even security theater. It's worse because you've given them a whole lot of work to do that they won't be able to understand. I really like this approach, and yeah, I'd love to see, or I'm looking forward to seeing the effects of it. One of my pet peeves is, um, yeah, like sending a whole load of incredibly like professional and experienced professionals from a company to a nursing home to paint the do a mediocre job of painting the walls. I'm like, it feels like that crew could do, if whatever the recruiters decided to improve their careers page, and if the IT team decided to like upgrade some software on like their laptops or whatever, that they'd actually be doing a lot better job because you're able to like offer your own expertise rather than um well, let me just tell you, I am not a very good painter, and the job that I did almost certainly had to be redone in some of those organizations. But anyway, getting back to IOR, I suppose in the future, like you started this venture, uh, presumably the goal is to grow, maybe grow responsibly. But what do you like? What do you think is going to happen in the future? What threats are you looking forward to? What threats are you looking forward to? What threats do you think are going to be increasing over the next couple of years that we're not paying enough attention to?
Yeah, like I probably sound one of those big scary China is the evil boogeyman, but I definitely generally think as we're getting closer to kind of 2030 when the Chinese have made very kind of clear that they want a reunification with Taiwan
Hmm.
through
Yeah.
any means. Unfortunately, as a result, we are seeing increased cadence from them in various operations, whether it's gaining access, gaining a foothold to prepare for potentially disruptive activities. Espionage, stealing IP is still absolutely going on as well. And so and it doesn't mean to say that they will take disruptive action. They just need that strategic option. And I guess in a good way that the Chinese state is very clear in what their objectives are. They don't
Hmm.
hide that; they signal it quite loudly. And I'm definitely not saying like we shouldn't do trade with China or anything else like that. I think organizations just need to be responsible. I think we saw during COVID how tightly intercoupled logistics supply chains are. And so that organizations need to kind of understand as well that if there is disruption, either to ports, to and if say unfortunately becomes kind of kinetic normal traditional warfare with Taiwan to reunification, that's going to be massive global disruptions, and
Yeah.
that's going to have an absolute catastrophic impact to society. And so just being aware of that, but also unfortunately, I think cybercrime is not slowing down anytime soon, and that is so heavily underreported today. And I think the capability of cyber criminals is significantly increasing. And I think the unfortunate situation we could end up in as well is that if things quieten down with Taiwan, China currently has hundreds of thousands of cyber operators. Well, some of them are probably going to be not needed. They'll probably need to go find other jobs, and they could well turn to criminal activity. And so then all of a sudden, your highly trained, highly capable state-sponsored adversaries now could become criminals. And so I definitely think the criminal element, the financial element, is huge because we've seen time and time again ransomware operators don't care if it's a children's hospital or a cancer research organization. They'll attack anything and everything. And there's generally very little or no consequences for them.
And the barriers to entry aren't huge already. We've seen that with North Korea, who've made billions out of ransomware, and they are like basically state-sponsored cybercrime operators. They're just not as good at it as the Chinese are, and the Chinese definitely have better access to to some or backdoors to these organizations if they need to.
Yeah, and I think this is the downside of AI. Like I'm not the world's best coder, but I've been able to develop some pretty cool apps and scripts very, very quickly with AI. And so I think the speed of delivery, the speed of new capability, AI will significantly increase as well, unfortunately. So I think it's going to become very quickly an AI versus AI game. Who can triage the alert the quickest? Who can come up with the defense the quickest?
I'm bearish on that for sure. I think that AI will lower the barrier to entry, but with the exception of maybe Bitcoin, um, here or like crypto space, I'm reasonably bullish on some of like the hard part. I don't think is actually like getting into an organization like ransomware. That you can do that. I think that hard part is that next part of like actually going from that to $10 million. Like how do you cash that out in a way that you're not going to be caught unless you're that professional? I think that that's where you're like script kiddies. Like yeah, maybe a couple of them
Yeah.
will do it, but a bunch of them I think will get hit at the same time if they do attempt it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, to kind of quote Patrick Gray, they have unleashed the hounds on that.
Yeah.
And I think the recent arrests around Snowflake is a great
Yeah,
example of that,
absolutely. Yeah.
where yeah, law enforcement is taking much more proactive action, and hopefully that continues.
Yeah, and hopefully, yeah, with increased international cooperation, we will be able to take down some of these and deter a whole lot of other people as well. But yeah, that was a really good example of moving fast and showing the implications of what would typically not be as, or would just typically have like fallen by the wayside and not been something that people would have prioritized over the course to investigate. I suppose that's looking at some of the threats. What do you think? Would you like to see on security teams in 5 years' time when you're advising your portfolio of customers? Hey, this is what you need to be thinking about. Like, how do you, how do you be advising them to improve their security team to structure it to set themselves up for success in the future?
Yeah, I think some of the challenges that we'll have in 5 years' time is how we're going to train people. I think traditional pathways of be a level one analyst, triage the alerts and move your way up is going to become challenging with AI because why would I hire an analyst to do that when AI can really speed that up and do that? I think continuing to increase diversity is going to be a challenge, and especially as we're likely to see kind of blended threats, so insiders combined with cyber activity, those kinds of things. You need people with different mindsets, different backgrounds to understand how humans operate. And I think that's the other big shift is we need to understand humans better. Like so far, we've really taken this as a technical challenge, but really it is us against other humans, and humans hopefully will stay in the loop and it won't be all AI. Otherwise, unfortunately, we'll all be out of a job pretty quick. And as a result, understanding human intent, human behaviors, and increasing the EQ of security teams is going to be increasingly important. And also just that fast, rapid changes is so important. Um, the the threat landscape is shifting so rapidly, and that changing priorities is okay. We might need to do that. I think organizations have been very focused on, yep, this is our 5-year roadmap. After 5 years, we'll reevaluate. Well, when we wake up tomorrow, there's probably a new most critical thing, and you don't want to shift constantly. You don't want to chase the shiny object, but you do need to be able to go, okay, the threat landscape, the geopolitical landscape has shifted drastically over the last 3 months. Therefore, we need to reevaluate our 5-year strategy.
Yeah, and it's not. Yeah, I think like that adaptability is a crucial thing to be both hiring for, but also yeah to encourage people. It's like people we hire in a startup, they're a lot more comfortable with that. Like, hey, your priorities are going to change, your manager is going to change. Like, we're gonna like shift a little bit. But yeah, in security teams, there's comfort in the regular, there's comfort in the routine, but telling people, hey, you got to have that growth mindset. It's going to be it's definitely going to be important. Raymond, I really enjoyed this conversation, but unfortunately, that's is all we're gonna have time for. If people want to follow your journey and follow Huntability, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, definitely. I'm on LinkedIn. We're on LinkedIn, Huntabil.IT, or visit our website, Huntability.tech.
Brilliant. Well, yeah, look, thank you so much for coming on. I'm looking forward to following the journey and yeah, seeing your success and hopefully seeing the success of a bunch of your customers as well. But yeah, congrats on starting, and I'm delighted for you. And yeah, really looking forward to working closely together in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And thank you for all the support. It was amazing working with you and the whole team at Canva, especially early on. It was a lot of fun working together, and definitely keep looking forward to working together very closely in the future.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Raymond.